Hello there, a very good evening to you and many thanks for joining us on Rwanda Television News tonight. We do hope you had yourselves a great and productive day and are welcome to our tonight's editions. These are the headlines. Prime Minister Dr. Edouard Ngirente calls for the adoption of effective, sustainable multilateral actions to tackle climate change. The EU has asked the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo to refrain from speech that encourages hate and divisionism. And to international matters, sadly, Tanzania's former President Ali Hassan Mwinyi has died at the age of 98. We are very glad to have your company tonight on Rwanda Television News. And as we start off our edition, let us inform you that on Thursday at Village Rugwiro, President Paul Kagame interacted with participants in the third edition of the Young Leaders Program brought together by the French African Foundation. Representatives from the group presented policy presentations focused on artificial intelligence, food systems, and education. Moving ahead, sadly, Tanzania's former President Ali Hassani Mwinyi has died at the age of 98. The death of the former head of state was announced by President Samia Suluhu Hassan. Mwinyi, who was the second president of Tanzania, was in office between 1985 and 1995. He succeeded the founding president, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. Mwinyi died 3 months to his 99th birthday. He was hospitalized on February 24th for a chest illness. And also, may his soul rest in peace and strength to our Tanzanian brothers and sisters. Moving ahead to other matters, Prime Minister Dr. Edouard Ngirente called for adoption of effective, sustainable multilateral action to tackle climate change. The remarks were made on a Thursday as the Prime Minister participated at the high-level segment of heads of state and government of the 6th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly. We do have the details with Prince Banzi.
For hosting UNEP,
The 6th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly saw participants including various state and government representatives as well as international organizations. Representing President Paul Kagame, Prime Minister Dr. Edouard Ngirente reiterated the need for effective sustainable multilateral actions to tackle climate change, biodiversity loss and pollution.
We all agree that addressing the current global environmental challenges requires efficient and collective international cooperation. It is a reminder to all of us that the multilateral system is critical to overcoming the social, economic, and environmental shocks threatening life on this planet. It is also an opportunity to showcase the power of multilateralism to deliver timely, inclusive, science-based solutions to the planet's gravest environmental threats.
Prime Minister Ngirente added that Rwanda has domesticated over 16 signed multilateral environmental agreements, and Rwanda learned that national efforts alone are not sufficient.
It is in this regard that Rwanda stands with members of the High Ambition Coalition to call for a global target to reduce plastic production to sustainable levels, along with a dedicated fund to deliver the means of implementation. Excellencies, we must carry forward the Nairobi spirit that was present at the 5th UNEA and build on the resolutions and the commitments made during that critical session, including the Plastics Treaty Resolution co-authored by Peru and Rwanda.
The Kenyan President, Dr. William Ruto, reiterates that with no reforms, the world affected by the climate change due to pollution cannot achieve its goal of biodiversity conservation.
Our reform agenda must begin by attending to fundamental structural dimensions to realign multilateral institutions with core values of the international community, including sovereign equality and effective democratic representation as the basis of enhanced effective and inclusivity. If we fail in this critical endeavor, multilateralism in its present state might falter, struggle, and collapse in the face of dire global crisis.
The Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, reminded that the least climate change contributors are highly enduring the aftermath. Heads of state and government and international organization representatives generally agree on the need of multilateral cooperation in curbing the climate change effects. Prince Manzi, RwandaTV News.
Thank you, Prince. The European Union has asked the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo to refrain from a speech that encourages hate and divisionism among its own people and instead respect the Nairobi and Rwanda Accords because military force will not provide a solution to the insecurity problem in the eastern part of that country.
Analysts on regional affairs have noted that the insecurity in the eastern DRC has its roots in Africa's colonial past and the way borders were drawn up between countries with little regard for the people living in different parts of the continent, though unfortunately some of today's leaders in those countries have only made things worse.
When
as a leader you go looking for the international community, for blocs like SADC, UN forces like MONUSCO, mercenaries, and then go to China to buy arms, all to shoot at your own countrymen. Then as the head of state you have failed to resolve the problems in your own country and are now calling on foreigners to shoot your own people. For close to 3 decades now, authorities in the DRC have failed to disarm the terrorist group that calls itself the FDLR, which has resulted in more than 100,000 Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese fleeing to other countries, including Rwanda, to become refugees. Right from the time the FDLR arrived in Congo, the Tutsi began to be hunted down. We ask ourselves why they are so concerned with the problems of the M23, but not the FDLR. Yet the FDLR are the root cause of most of the problems there. They are killing us. They are killing our people. The birth of the M23 rebel group, largely made up of Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese, is what triggered the hate that the DRC's leaders now have towards their own people, calling for their extermination, something officials in the International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals have denounced.
Whether it's the mechanism, whether it's myself individually as the registrar, or indeed anybody else, we condemn totally any crimes that are committed against innocent civilians anywhere in the world, including the DRC.
From a legal standpoint, the words and actions of anyone involved in what is going on in the eastern DRC can have serious repercussions regardless of who is participating in the atrocities being committed there. When a crime is being committed, it doesn't matter if it is the government or the international community involved, as you said. Then it is conspiracy to commit genocide if they are collaborating with people committing genocide. There is also the crime of conspiracy to commit acts of terrorism because some of the groups there have been branded as terrorist groups. The FDLR is a terrorist group, and this is not just some claim that I am making. The UN itself has confirmed it. The EU has also spoken out against what the DRC's government is doing, urging it to learn from what happened here in Rwanda back in 1994. Let me say it one more time. We denounce all hate speech and incitement for division from leaders who use such things to attack different ethnic groups and tribes. We cannot forget the dark history of this region as we approach the 30th commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi. We ask government officials and members of NGOs to refrain from those kinds of speeches. The European Commissioner for International Partnerships has also stressed that implementing the Nairobi and Rwanda Accords will resolve the problem of insecurity, not conflict. This crisis will not be resolved by military operations. Rather, what is needed is political dialogue to determine the root cause of the insecurity and conflict. The Nairobi and Rwanda Accords must be implemented so that the sovereignty and unity of all countries in the region can be respected. The EU supports the implementation of those accords without delay.
Soit relancé sans délai.
The government of the DRC has, however, repeatedly ignored the resolutions of the accords, and this latest call by the EU has been accompanied by a request of sanctions against groups fighting for the DRC government.
The data of about 3 million citizens have been put into the new Dynamic Social Registry database dubbed Imibereho, which will be used to identify individuals in need of support, replacing the current Ubudehe categories. Ruth Musabyimana and Jeanette Gahongaire say the social class categories contained questionable information, which constantly delayed service delivery. We would go to the hospital and be told that our daughter has issues. Also, after getting married, it was difficult to change the category. If the social categories get revised, we hope to get a justice, because there has been a lot of issues. I complained to different authorities, but the issues were not addressed. My child was malnourished, but the village authorities refused to sign for me so that I can be helped with feeding. The Dynamic Social Registry, officially launched on Thursday, is expected to provide trusted information. The data provided will be merged with other data in different systems because databases are interlinked. For example, if you say you don't own land, yet another database shows that a plot of land is registered under your name, it will be made clear. If you buy a car, after registering your information, you won't need to add it, because the database will draw the information from the Rwanda Revenue Authority database. Be it for the lost identification documents or other informations, the system will communicate with other government systems to provide accurate data. To check for the family information into the system, the resident will dial *195#. And for those whose information doesn't appear, they can contact cell-level authorities for assistance. Innocent Muhizi, Chief Executive Officer of the Rwanda Information Society Authority, assured citizens' data will be kept safe. One of the things the government of Rwanda did is to build the technology sector, but especially data safety. It should be made clear that data safety involves keeping financial data, property and others, so that unpermitted people cannot access such information. The revised 2020 policy indicates that the changes in the welfare and socio-economic status of social protection beneficiaries will be monitored through dynamic household profiling and social registry that was launched on Thursday. The project was funded by the World Bank, in addition to other projects in 12 different authority levels around the country. The total funding amounts to $13 billion. A number of vendors in Rubavu's market are complaining about the scales they were given to use, being told that they meet the required standards, only to later be told that they needed repairs and would be returned, but they were taken away and not returned. There are some among them that say they bought weighing scales worth 60,000 francs that were being hyped as high quality that did not last a month before breaking down, and now they are being told to buy others worth 100,000 francs. Officials at the Rwanda Standards Board say they are aware of the scam and those responsible to be held accountable, with the vendors being urged to immediately turn to RSB in future whenever they are in doubt about what products they should be using. RSB is currently conducting a countrywide campaign on awareness of the issue of substandard products that are disguised as the real thing when they are not. Moving ahead to education matters, institutions that have a common ground in the teaching of medical professionals in Kigali are in Kigali to look at how to integrate curriculum and training programs in the East African countries. We do have the details with Christelle Uwase.
Program aimed at removing the barriers that prevent medical students from working in these East African countries. It is therefore being considered that there is a harmonization of the delivery of health services in these countries, as Austin Odo Otieno, one of its organizers, explains.
Directors, we have directors of health and different people from the clinical medicine field from East Africa. They are gathered here for a 2-day workshop. The reason is we must come up with a framework. Now come up and step so that a clinical officer from Rwanda can easily work in Kenya without any hitches.
Burundian Ambassador Colombe Bizumuremyi says that coordinating training and programs for similar medical staff will make it easier for them to work and study in these countries. Now that we have the same teaching programs for these medical courses in our countries, Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, Kenya, and all other countries in East African community, it will be easy for the graduate to get a permit of working and studying in one of the country members. Medical students at Rwandan universities, on the other hand, enjoy this approach and encourage them to study in order to use this opportunity.
To help us to also explore more opportunities from not only Rwanda, but also other countries neighboring Rwanda.
Jean-Baptiste Nihumbya, the Director of Quality Services at the Ministry of Health, finds that the program is going to help students and medical services providers and promote cooperation in these countries of the region.
What I
can add on is that it will improve the quality of services given to patients. Implementing this will reduce the challenges and help everyone who wants to improve their career in one of the member countries, as the curriculum will be the same in all countries.
More than 8 people from various health sectors in the East African community attended the program. Initially, such programs started with doctors and health experts. Christelle Wase, RwandaTV News.
Thank you, Christelle, and we'll keep it to education matters. Students completing the first 3 years of their secondary school studies in Rusizi district have begun carrying out study tours to TVET schools. This is part of the drive to encourage more students to take technical vocational studies as part of the government's efforts to increase the current figure of 45% of all students opting for the branch in TVET schools to at least around 60% by the end of this year. The heads of TVET schools say they still have a lot of work to do in regards to convincing both students and parents in general that technical vocational studies are an attractive prospect, because it is not uncommon for students to refuse to undertake such studies, and even some parents refuse to send their children to TVET schools because of the stigma attached to them.
Technical education. Our students come and learn theoretical and practical courses. They get practical skills most especially, and those skills help them to get jobs and also to create their own jobs. And I urge parents and also students, young people, especially those who are going to sit for national exams for O-level, to choose technical secondary schools, because that's where their hope-filled future is actually focused. We chose to invite students, especially those who are about to sit for national exam in the O-level, so that they can come and learn what we do, what we teach in the technical secondary schools, in order to choose those trades we have here.
Only 2 out of 18 sectors in Rusizi district are without TVET schools, and the district has 18 such schools with as many as 4,355 students collectively. And that's all from us here at RB's Rwanda Television News. On behalf of the entire news production as well as the technical team that made it happen, many thanks for being with us. And up until next time, stay safe and have a great evening. Goodbye.